Good day, everyone, wherever and whatever time you are listening. First of all, welcome to ICAEW Case Study Orientation, and that is for July 2026 exam session, and that is presented by Noman Liaquat. Now, first of all, let's talk about the contents what we are going to cover for our today's orientation, and that is basically NL Professional Academy. These are some of the contents that we are going to cover it up in our today's session. First of all, we will be talking about case study structure. What is the structure of case study? How case study looks like? What is the syllabus of case study? What you need to study in your case study exam? Second, we will be talking about advanced information. That is one of the most important component of case study. We cannot prepare ourselves without advanced information. So what is advanced information? How it looks like? We will discuss in detail. Third, we will talk about exam structure. What is the exam structure of case study? How many questions would be there? How questions would look like? Fourth, on the table, we have exam skills. What exam skills are required? What are important skills to make sure that you pass out your case study? What are recent changes in your case study exam as well? Because after some time, there are some changes. So what are those changes in your case study exam? We will talk about. Further, we will talk about some reasons why students fail their case study exam. Case study is basically a last hurdle, last exam before you apply for ICAEW prestigious membership. So why some students get fail? Even they qualify all of the certificate or professional level exam and 2 exams of advanced level, but why they are stuck in case study? What is the reason? What are some common reasons behind that? Then we will talk about how we are going to study, how we can make sure that you do not fail out your case study exam. What is our approach and how we are going to talk about. As I mentioned earlier, this orientation, these sessions would be for July 2026 exam. So specifically, we will be talking about July 2026 AI. That is basically, you can say, your advanced information. What would be July 2026 advanced information? That will be revealed later on. But here at this point, we will be talking about how we can prepare for July 2026 advanced information, how we will be preparing, what would be our strategy. Second last, we will be talking about tutors feedback. Tutors feedback mean I will be sharing a sample script with you and I will be guiding you how I mark your scripts, your exam, your assignments, each and everything would be marked and reverted back to you people. And last one, we will be having a question and answer session. I will be taking up questions from all of you till the end of orientation. I would request all of you to please hold your question. Otherwise, you can send me in the chat box. Once this orientation would be completed, then I will answer all of your questions. So let's start our orientation formally. First of all, let's talk about the tutor's profile. I am Numan Liaquat, your tutor for ACA ICAEW advanced level exams. Talking about my certification and experience, I am ACA ICAEW member since 2017. So I would be an FCA in 2027. I have more than 15 plus years of teaching experience at different levels, institutes, universities, colleges, approved learning providers. I have more than 12 plus years of industry working at different positions in accounting, finance, audit. Along with ACA, I am also a fellow member of Association of Chartered Certified Accountants known as ACCA. I am also an associate member of Pakistan Institute of Public Finance Accountants, and I also hold memberships of many other different international and national qualifications. I'm also a tutor learning provider at different online forums, approved learning partners. I'm also a lecturer at a university. I'm also a registered mentor at Oxford Brookes University, United Kingdom. I also hold business finance professional certification from United Kingdom. And there is also an update. I'm also working as a visiting faculty member at one of the prestigious universities in UAE. Also a visiting faculty member for one of the renowned universities in UAE, United Arab Emirates. So that is basically a short introduction about myself. So let's start without any delay, and you will be in safe hand. You should not be worried about anything. So let's talk about case study structure basically. What is the structure of case study? How your case study will look like? How this case study will look like? What would be the syllabus? What would be the areas of consideration? If I talk about case study, in case study, what you have, first of all, what you should remember, there is no technical knowledge. There is no technical knowledge. No technical knowledge mean no IAS, no IFRS, no tax, no law, or financial management, or any other exam. So there will be no technical knowledge. You should be free. You should not remember the complex accounting treatments of IFRS 9 or asset-based valuation methods of SBM. You need to talk about the audit approach. What is audit risk? What is business risk? No, this is not required in your case study exam. First of all, this is the major point that you should remember and you should learn. Second, what we have, that is basically a skill-based exam. Skill-based exam. Skill-based exam means your skills are going to be tested. Your skills are going to be tested in this exam. That is an exam of your skills and not an exam of your technical knowledge, as I mentioned. Third, that is a report writing exam. Report writing means you have to write a report. You have to write a report basically. And you have to write a report in your exam conditions of 4 hours. Next, we have advanced information. It uses the advanced information. What is advanced information? How it will look like? We will discuss. That is the very next point after this. Then we will talk about exam requirements. What are exam requirements? How many exam requirements would be there? That is the very next point. And then we will talk about ethical issues. What are ethical issues? Because ethics are very important for ICAEW exam. In all of your 15 exams of ICAEW and also in new ACS scheme that contains 14 exams, all of them, all exams have ethics, professionalism. Because ICAEW believes ethics are very important. You should not be just a financial accountant getting some benefits for you. You should also pay back something to the society. How you can pay back? When you are an ethical accountant, when you are a professional accountant, when you are following the code of ethics of IFAC, code of ethics of ICAEW. So this is basically a basic structure of case study. In first of all, I talked about there is no technical knowledge. No technical knowledge mean no IAS, no IFRS, no law, taxation, financial management, nothing like this. Then I mentioned it's a skill-based exam. You need to get write a reports. Then it uses the advanced information, exam requirements, and ethical concerns as well, basically. Now let's talk about advanced information. What is advanced information? How this advanced information will look like? How this advanced information will look like? What do you mean by this advanced information? Why this is released few weeks before the exam? Why? Advanced information, let's talk about the concept. First of all, concept basically. Your exam is in July, third week. Exams would be in third week of July. Real exams that would be conducted by ICAEW, that would be in third week. But approximately 5 to 6 weeks, at least, before exam. What happens? Advanced information is released. Advanced information is released basically. What is advanced information? Just like, for example, you go to a meeting, you have a presentation. So you already know what would be your topic. You prepare your presentation. You get ready yourself for the questions of audience basically. So you know the topic, you know each and everything. You have to prepare yourself for the questions that will be coming up after your orientation. Similarly, what ICAEW believes, you should know the industry. You should know the client. You should be having a good idea about the history of client, about its performance. You must be having some good understanding. That's why we have the topic of advanced information. It means the information that is released in advance. That's why it is called as advanced information. Now there is a misconception and some students think when advanced information is released, it means exam paper is there and each and everything. No, it's not like. Exam paper will be based upon the advanced information. Will be based upon mean like you have idea about client history, its performance, its suppliers, customers, supply chain, processes, strategies, future plan. So you have idea through advanced information. In exam paper, there will be some new information, but basics would be same. Like in advanced information, we have 3 years of management accounts, just like, for example, for 2023, 2024, and 2025. For 2026 management accounts, that would be given in exam hall. Some new information would be there. Some new scenarios would be there. That's why we have to use them. Just like I mentioned the example of orientation. You already know what would be your topic. You prepare your slide, you prepare your notes, you prepare yourself, but you do not know what would be the questions of audience. Similarly, advanced information is a similar document. You prepared yourself, but you do not know what would come into your real exam. That will depend upon examiner on your exam day. But definitely we can prepare ourselves. We will be having an idea about our topic, about our industry, about our client, and how things are moving on. If we talk about some major components of advanced information, then first of all, it is a 40 to 50 pages document, basically, approximately. Some pages, there might be some variation as well, 38 pages or 51 pages, but normally it's a 40 to 50 page document. It talks about industry and company. For example, there will be a specific industry, just like watch industry, books industry, shoe industry, services industry. So there will be an industry, and then there will be a fictitious company as well. Fictitious company mean they have created, they have used a name, just simply a name, XYZ company or whatever the name is. Why? Just because to show what is happening in the industry. Industry would be real. What is happening out in the company, they will be taking up and using some information. Then management accounts would be there. As I mentioned, 3 years, at least 3 years accounts would be there. Why these accounts would be given to us? just because so we can analyze the performance of company. We can analyze what happened with the client in previous 3 years. What was the performance? What is the position? What about cash flows of that client basically? Then there will be some major assumptions of preparing your financial statement, assumptions of preparing your management accounts basically, assumptions regarding your revenues, costs, your profit, your some other areas. Then we will be having information about the suppliers and customers as well. Yes, sometimes some information is given, sometimes some information is not given. I generally mention what is normally given to us in exam advanced information. Suppliers and customers, who are your suppliers, from where you are buying something, either your suppliers are ethical or not, either they are using natural ingredients, either they are using or not the child labor. So these are some ethical and professional concerns that you should remember when you have to evaluate your supplier. Similarly with the customers, who are your customers? Individual customers, corporate customers, what your customers are doing and how they are going for. Business strategies. What are business strategies of the particular client, of the company that is debatable in question? That is given to you in your question as well. Research articles. Yes, research articles would be given. Some articles would be given, some latest news, some latest areas, what happened with the company, what happened in the industry. Then there will be ethical issues, as I just mentioned, with respective to your suppliers, your customer, your company operation, your strategies. And last but not the least, we have some other information as well. Other information might include some other exhibits that are not part of these debate. So that is basically an overview of advanced information, what will be given to you in your advanced information. Now let's talk about exam structure. We know we covered the very first component, that was advanced information, how it will look like and what would be the part of advanced information. But now if we talk about exam structure, so what would be the exam structure? How your exam would look like? Let's have a point. In case study, what you should remember, in case study, we have just one question. And that question is of 100 marks. 100 marks question. Again, the passing is 50% is the passing. 100 marks, one question. Unlike in corporate reporting, we have 3 questions. In SBM, we have 2 questions. And we have different number of questions in different exams of certificate and professional level. In case study, you have just one question. And that is of 100 marks. And passing marks are 50%. So what would be the question requirement? Next point is, what would be the requirements of that question? There are 3 major requirements of question. First of all, requirement number 1. In requirement number 1, we have financial analysis. Financial analysis means we have to analyze the management accounts. Like for example, in 2025 and 2026, we have 2 years. Let's suppose we are talking about revenue. Let's suppose in 2025, your revenue was 20 million pound. But in 2026, your revenue is 32 million pound. Your revenue has increased by 12 million pound. That looks a very good increase. But if we talk about industry, that is about company or a client. But if we talk about industry, In industry, what you have approximately 5 to 6 million pound increase. But your revenue is 12 million pounds. So almost double, almost twice of the revenue of industry, almost twice. So what is the reason? What you need to do, you need to find out. You need to find out reasons behind this. Either there were some new customers, there was a revision in selling price, or there are some new contracts, or there are some one-off reasons. What is the major reason behind this increase? Or there is some sort of manipulation by the management of the company. Why it is performing? Because if it is performing well in an ethical manner, each and everything is fine, that is good, that is appreciable. But being as a chartered accountant, that should be the very first thing, how there is an increase of 2 times as compared to industry averages. This should be the very first thing. So you will be, first of all, analyzing the management accounts. You will be asking the question, you will be finding out the reason, and then you will be answering it up. Then you also need to prepare the appendix. What is appendix? Appendix means basic calculation. Like for example, if you have to compare 2 years or 3 years, so that will be given to you. Some information would be given to you in advanced information, while other information would be given to you in your exam hall. So you will be preparing the appendix. You will be talking about changes, absolute change, percentage change, finding out some numbers, some percentages, depending upon your requirement. And we will be discussing in our complete session with the help of some previous case studies. Then next come the twist. What is twist? Twist is basically an additional requirement. Just like we talk about what happened with your revenue, with your cost, with your gross profit, with your operating profit. These are normal things. But twist means some surprise, some extra requirement, some one-off requirement that examiner might ask to you. So that is basically about your requirement number 1. Then we have requirement number 2. And for this, we have FDA, that is called as financial data analysis. Let me erase this one, then I will discuss. In requirement 2, we have financial data analysis. What will happen in financial data analysis? For example, in 2025 and 2026. Let's suppose we are a books company and books. Let's suppose the volume. Let's suppose in 2025, 1.5 million books were sold out. In 2026, we are predicting 2.5 million books would be sold out. And let's say we are also saying selling price, let's suppose that was £5 on average. And here we are talking about selling price would be increased to £8 per book. So this is the data. This is the information. 2025 has been completed already, but now we are in mid of 2026. For this, we have the actual information. For 2026, we have a forecast. This is our expectation. What will happen in 2026? So what we need to do? We need to look at the assumption. These are basically the assumptions. These are basically assumptions for your 2026 information. These are your assumptions. Because 2026 has not been completed so far. We are in mid of 2026. But we can make some sort of prediction. This is what companies predicting. They are preparing some forecasts, some feasibilities for their company, for their volumes. This is what you need to do. Here, for assumption, you need to apply AJ. AJ mean applying judgment. You need to apply your judgment. You need to apply your judgment. You need to look at why they are predicting a huge increase in volume? Why they are predicting an increase in selling price? Even when you are increasing the selling price, your volume of books is also increasing. So is it possible? What about competitors? What about other companies? What about our customers? How they are going to respond to this price increase? This is a question what you should ask to yourself, what you should ask to the client. Again, we will be going for appendix. We will be having some numerical work, some calculation. We can apply different tools, just like sensitivity analysis. For example, what if this volume is not achieved? What if the selling price is not achieved? So what is going to happen? What would be the profitability? What would be the loss? What would be revenues? What would be contribution? These are some questions that you should ask. Again, then there could be a twist element. Twist means some sort of extra requirement, some additional requirement as well, basically. Then let's talk about the third requirement. In third requirement, what we have business analysis. In third requirement, we have business analysis. Business analysis, it doesn't mean we need to remember, we need to recall something. Here we need to apply some sort of business model. We need to apply some business models. Business models just to identify something. Like, for example, you can apply SWOT, you can apply pastel, or you can apply any other model just to identify factors, just to identify things. You may not need to remember the name. You may not need to apply the name like I applied the SWOT model. No, simply you can find out. You can apply the SWOT or pastel or Porter 5 forces or whatever the point is. In business analysis, what you need to do, you need to look at strategic impact. You need to consider strategic issues. You also need to talk about financial consideration. You need to talk about operational issues. You need to consider strategic, financial, operational benefits or issues of pursuing a particular strategy. This is a common requirement of requirement 3, talking about multiple aspects of strategic, financial, operational. And in this requirement, there might be an appendix or there might not be an appendix, depending upon examiner's mood, how your exam is being set it out. So that is your requirement 3, talking about business analysis. And then what we have next on the table, we have executive summary. We have executive summary. Executive summary is basically a summary of all 3 requirements. Executive summary is basically a summary of all 3 requirements. What you have written comprehensively in all of 3 requirements, you should summarize it for requirement wise. For requirement 1, that is my executive summary. For requirement 2, that is my executive summary. And for requirement 3, that is my executive summary. This is what you need to remember. This is what you need to mention it here as well. So these are basically the requirements of your case study. Now let's talk about exam skills. What exam skills are required for your case study? What skills you should be good at? Do we need to apply just our professional judgment or do we need some basic work? Let's have a relook. In case study, you need 5 skills. you need 5 major skills for your exam. First of all, we have assimilating and using information, and its percentage is approximately 20% to 30%. What is assimilating and using information? This is also called as A and UI. Assimilating and using information, 20% to 30% basically. You just need basic information. Basic information that you need to input. Basic, for example, some taking up some numbers, preparing the appendix, just writing up some basic numbers or basic calculation in your research report. That is basically about assimilating and using information. Second type of skill that we have, that is structuring problems and solution. This is called as SP and S. Structuring problems and solution. Structuring problems and solution mean you need to go for basic structuring. Some basic explanation. That is structuring problems and solution. Next, we have applying judgment, and this is called as AJ. Applying judgment. Again, its percentage is 20% to 30% as well. So here you need to solve complex matters through your judgment. Through your judgment, you need to go for that. That is your applying judgment. So we talked about on this slide, we talked about 3 skills. First of all, A and UI, second SP and S, and third one, that is AJ. Now let's talk about 2 further skills. Fourth one is basically about drawing conclusions and making a recommendation. That is the fourth one. Even some people say conclusion is a separate skill and recommendation is a separate skill. And then executive summary, that is something else. It's entirely up to you how you want to differentiate this. In conclusion and recommendation, that is called as C and R. What you need to do, you need to conclude on 3 requirements. Conclusion, what is your takeaway? And then in recommendation, you need to provide commercial, suitable recommendations. Commercial, suitable recommendations as well. For example, what you should do now. For example, if you have launched a strategy, but this strategy is not performing well, so what you should do? What you should do now? What steps you can take? What actions you should take? But remember, your recommendation should be suitable, commercial, applicable, not the generic one. I will discuss in detail each component, each skill. We will be having a separate session. How you can develop this skill. What do you mean by this particular skill? How you can learn this skill. Then we will be, after learning this skill, after decoding what is required for each skill, we will be having our practice session. And last but not the least, we have executive summary that contains approximately 13%, and CNR, its percentage was 15 to 20% as well. Approximately 13%, that is for executive summary. I explained you earlier, executive summary means that is a brief of all 3 requirements. That is your executive summary. So these are 5 skills that are important for passing your case study exam. Now let's move forward. Next point is, what are changes? What are recent changes in your case study? What are recent changes in your case study exam? Because it is important to understand the exam. It is very important to understand the structure. Because if you are preparing according to old method, this might not work it out. You need to update yourself. What we have, first of all, we have marking key refinements. Your marking key has been changed. So there are changes in your marking key. Exam skills, percentages, box based marking key. What is box based marking key? What is marking key? That requires a complete lecture. That's why I'm not discussing it here. We will discuss in our complete session. Then we have exam paper adoptions. Exam paper adaptations mean changes in exam requirements. Changes in exam requirements means structure. The way examiner is asking a question, that has been a little bit adapted. That has been a bit changed. Then we have advanced information. Structure of advanced information. What things are given to us, what things are not given to us in our recent advanced information. Then there are updates in your computer based exam. Yes, we have computer based exam. It's not like a manual exam. So that is basically a computer based exam. CB stand for computer based exam. Changes in marking key, I already explained. Your skills, percentages, your boxes, that is going to be changed. That has changed, in fact. Then executive summary evolution, executive summary has been changed. That has been modified. Because earlier the exam was manual. Manual means you were given a piece of paper and then you have to write on that paper as well. Just like we appeared in our case study exam more than a decade year ago. More than a decade in 2016. Now, exams are computer based. An examiner already knows that in executive summary, students can take something from major requirement and make it copy and a paste. No, this is not allowed. This is not going to be executive summary. This will not be marked. So executive summary has changed, evolved basically, and you need to make sure that you keep yourself updated with this executive summary. So your executive summary has been modified, has been in advanced form. Now point is why students fail. Why students fail? When they pass rest of the exam of ICAEW, either they are coming directly through ICAEW or getting some sort of exemption through any professional body or any route. So why students are going to fail? This is the last exam. This is going to be a last hurdle. Before applying ICAEW membership. This is the last thing. So why students fail? What you should do, you should put more focus, more emphasis toward this case study exam. So this is the last thing what you can qualify. And after meeting all other requirements, you can apply for membership. Here, based on my experience of more than a decade, what I did, I prepared an analysis. These are some of the common reasons why students fail their case study exam. First of all, that is the poor analysis. They do not conduct a good analysis of exam requirements, basically. Do not go for that. They take it very lightly because they think there is no technical requirements of IES, IFRS or other stuff. So they take it very lightly. They take it casually, unfortunately, and they do not perform a good analysis. Second, not understanding examiner's key. As I mentioned, marking key of ICAEW case study, that is entirely different as compared to your rest of the exams. Even in different professional certifications, They have an on key, but ICAEW case study has its own marking key. You need to understand it very well. Next, we have coherence concerns regarding writing. Yes, students are facing concerns in their writing side. At one paragraph, they will be talking about one stance. In next paragraph, they will be taking up another stance. They do not create linkages. What is going to happen if board of directors or CFO or CEO or partner of a firm is going to read that report? Your paragraphs, your points are not linked. What does this impression? This is a very bad thing. Time management. Yes, this is the very common thing. Most people think that is a 4-hour exam. Oh, normally exams are 3 hours or 3.5 hours. 4 hours is a more than enough amount of time and we can do wonders. We do not need to be good with our time management. No. Case study has a different structure, different requirements, executive summary, ethics, a lot of work that you need to do in 4-hour exam. You need to study exam paper. You need to look at planning side. You need to go for calculation, discussion, interpretation. So you need to manage your time. Poor exam techniques. Yes. You do not apply good techniques in your exam. Like you do not talk about some good numbers. You are just using some irrelevant data. You are not taking up a good professional judgment. This is something not good. Not balancing the paper. Yes. Not balancing the paper mean you write too much for one requirement, but you do not write the same amount of stuff for the other requirement. Like for example, requirement 1, you wrote, let's suppose, 6 pages. For requirement 2, let's suppose you also wrote 5 pages. Here in requirement 3, you think, oh, there is a very small amount of time and you are just writing 2 pages. Do you think, are you justifying yourself? What has you done? You have prepared the mind of examiner. I will write approximately 6 pages for requirement 1, 5 pages for requirement 2. That makes some sort of sense. There could be some changes. But in requirement 3, that is not even half. That is approximately 40% of your requirement 1. Approximately 40%. Is this a justice? No. It means in requirement 1, there is something wrong. In fact, there will be a lot of things that you have missed it out. That's why you have wrote a very short write-up here. You are not balancing your paper. And mostly it happens with your requirement 3 because you spend too much amount of time in first 2 requirement and you do not put significant amount of time, a considerable time on your requirement 3. That is the biggest reason. Requirement 3 is the biggest reason of failure. So I will tell you how you have to attempt, how you have to write your answers for particular requirements basically. We will discuss in practice session. Lack of practice, yes. Most of the time, students just read out the advanced information and they do not go for writing up prior case studies, past papers of case studies, basically. You should write it up. You should get feedback from your tutor. What you have done right, what you have done wrong. Because it's a box-based marking key. If your points are falling in that particular boxes, then you will be rewarded. Otherwise, you may not be rewarded. So what could be those points? You need to understand. You also need to understand the requirements. What are requirements basically? Requirement addressing, that is another problem, another concern basically. You need to understand your requirements quite carefully because sometimes there are multiple aspects of a requirement. And when you read in a very quick fashion, it is quite possible you may miss out some of those aspects. So that could be the problem. Poor executive summary. If executive summary is poor, then again, it is a possibility you might fail out your exam. Poor executive summary, that is also one of the reasons of failing out your exam as well. You need to be good with each and every aspect, with your requirements, with your appendices, with your twists, with your executive summary, with all of that stuff. And we will cover up all of the areas, all of the points. These are some of the reasons why students fail. Now let's talk about how we study, how we can make sure that we do not fall into the trap. We do not make such mistakes that are normally that are normally made by the students. Now let's talk about what we do. I apply a very simple approach. First of all, we will be studying. We should understand the case study. As we are just going for this orientation, we should understand the structure, how we need to prepare ourselves, because there is a no syllabus of case study. Then we will going for practice. Once we have completed our learning for one point, then we will be going for the learning side. Like, for example, we have studied the requirement one, so we will go for the practice of requirement one. How you can go for requirement one, how requirement one will be tested in your exam. Then I will provide you the feedback. Feedback is also very, very important. Feedback is also very, very important as well. Because if you are just making the practice, but you are not getting the feedback, you do not know what is right and what is wrong, what you need to fix it out. So this is always suggested to take feedback who has some experience, who have passed the case study exam. It's not about taking the feedback from generic person. Further, how we go for that? We talk about live online session, just like this orientation is live. So we will be having live online sessions for our case study. Apart from that, there will be recorded sessions too. You can attend the live online session. That is, I always prefer. After this, you will be provided with the recordings. So you can look at the recordings. You can watch out recordings as many times as you want. There will be some group sessions as well. You can also enroll as a part of group session. You can also join us for one-to-one sessions as well, because if you have a particular requirement, you can also join us for one-to-one session. So these are different methods of studying how you can join us. Further, what we go for, as I mentioned, we go for live online and recorded session. Then there will be assignments, and these assignments are divided into two portions. First of all, class-based assignments. Second, there are some home-based assignments as well. Class-based assignments mean, for example, we have discussed a point, we discussed something, so we will be taking up some assignment, some practice in class as a part of our session. Then there will be some home-based assignments, like some question or some part will be given to you that you need to attempt at your home, and then you need to send it out to me, to my team. Then I will evaluate all of your assignments. Comprehensive notes, yes, notes as well as slides will be given to you. Notes in the form of brief, notes in the form of slides, these will be provided to you so you can remember, you can learn what is going to happen and how you are going to move forward. Then there would be evaluations and feedback on your assignments. Yes, I will be evaluating your assignment, providing you the detailed feedback. Before the end of this orientation, that is my second last point, I will explain how I will provide the detailed feedback on each and every script basically. Further, what is going to happen? We will be talking about exam practice software, because as I mentioned, exams would be in CB format, computer based exam. CB means computer based exam, not the MCQs. So what you have to move forward, how you can prepare yourself, how you can use that software, you need to be aware. We will be using the question bank as well as the past paper practices. Question bank mean some previous case studies. Then we will be using the latest study material, that is of 2026 study material, that we will be using for our session. And then there will be mock exams and the feedback that will be provided to all of you people. All of you people will be provided with the each and every assignment, each and every mock with the feedback. How we will be covering it up? First of all, study session. I have divided into two areas, study session and practice session, basically. So in study sessions, what we are going to talk about, understanding of case study structure, previous case studies, understanding and practice. Report writing structure. What should be the structure of your report? How you have to write a report, basically. How you need to manage your time management skills. We will be studying here, and then we will be practicing here. That's why there is a two-way arrow. One thing is coming on one side and other thing is coming. So all of these two areas are relating with one another. In practice session, we will be talking about marking key. What is the marking key? How it looks like? What are exam skills that we discussed earlier? What about exam grades? We will discuss when we'll be taking up this session of marking key. And at the last, we will also discuss about time running out. Unfortunately, due to some uncertain reason, your timing is running out and you have left with some amount of paper. So what do you need to do? I will discuss in detail in our session, in our exam technique points, basically, because we cannot discuss at this point. Otherwise, students will be applying the same thing from the very first day. So we will discuss at a part of exam technique session what you need to do. Now let's talk about with the perspective of July 2026 advanced information that will be released approximately 6 weeks before the exam. Approximately 6 weeks before the exam that will be released. So how this advanced information would look like, we cannot predict it out, but we can talk about some basic patterns, or we can talk about how how we will be preparing ourselves. Again, I have divided into two areas. First of all, we have study session. Then we have July 2026 AI. Professional skills, we will be talking about writing exam summary, executive summary of that particular area, balancing the exam paper, how you can balance out your exam paper, what exam vocabulary you have to use, you have to deploy for your exam. And with respective of July 2026, we will be having multiple sessions, to analyze that July 2026 advanced information, basically. Multiple sessions we will be having. And we will start from the very first word to the last word, last full stop of that case study advanced information, basically. Then we will be having some practice scenarios, practice questions based upon that advanced information. What are possible areas of debate? I will be providing the feedback as I mentioned earlier. And last but not the least, with respect to July 2026, we will be having the exam file. Because advanced information is 40 to 50 page document. And if you need to find out something, how you can go for that? Either you will be studying the whole information. No, that will consume a huge amount of time. You need to be good. You need to apply some smart strategies. That's why I will suggest you to prepare an exam file so you can find out your information quite easily. So what should be the format? How you can print out, how you can use out exam file, I will be telling you when this advanced information will be released and when we have analyzed our advanced information. Now, tutor's feedback. What is tutor's feedback and how this feedback will be given to you? How this feedback will be given to you, basically. Now, let's talk about. This is basically a script of one of my students. Obviously, due to some confidentiality reasons, I cannot disclose the name. Just like two from that the subject or terms of reference were missing. You see some areas figures are not given, either is a million, thousand, or billion. How this is an increase you didn't mention. This is something that is not clear. Here are some spelling issues. Here you have not linked up the information. So this is just basically a snapshot, a sample how I am going to evaluate your assignments, your feedback basically. In this way, I am going to evaluate and providing you a detailed feedback for all of your assignments to all of you one by one. These are the contact details, our case study session. This is basically the WhatsApp, and that is the same thing for corporate reporting, SBM, and case study. This is the email, and this is basically our Facebook. And same thing is also available on LinkedIn as well. And if you want to take up my LinkedIn, you can take up as a part of that is of tutor. And for academy, that is NL Professional Academy. You can follow this page to stay updated with the recent changes with your case study and other exams. Now, I would say thank you to all of you for listening me. What I will be doing, I will be taking up questions from you people. Now it's all done from my side, and I will be unmuting to all of you. Yes, if you have any question, any point, then please let me know. Any question, any point, then please let me know. Or even we can have a separate recording for our question and answer session. Thank you. And the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. You can watch it out.